second meeting of the Metropolitan Policy Committee. I believe Paul will start recording of the meeting now.
Let me do
Recording
this.
in progress.
This meeting is being recorded.
And Counselor, just one moment. There is, okay, I'm just checking. Mayor Venice, I need to put to a panelist, and Mayor Venice is joining us now.
Okay, Eugene. This is where Brenda will announce his attendance at the meeting.
I believe I'm going to do that, Counselor Moe.
Okay.
We don't have Brenda with us yet today, and I think she actually is traveling or otherwise unavailable.
That's fine.
Thank you. So real quickly, I'm going to go through the names that I see, and hopefully I won't miss anybody, and I'll try to get everybody included because we do have a few new MPC members joining us today. So, hello, I'm Paul Thompson. I'm the MPO manager at the Lane Council of Governments. Joining us, and I'm just going down the list that I see in no particular order, and I'm going to avoid titles to make it quicker. I have Ellen Courier from LCOG, Steve Moe from the City of Springfield, Andrew Martin from LTD, Ann Heath from Coburg, Bill Johnson from ODOT, Cassidy Mills from Lane County, Dan Collister from LCOG, David Lovell from Lane County, Delaney Thompson from LCOG, Drew Pfefferly from LCOG, Jennifer Willier from City of Eugene, let's see, John Marshall, City of Coburg, Kate Wilson, LCOG, Kelly Clark, LCOG, Mark Bernard, ODOT. It says Mayor Coburg, and I believe that would be Mayor Nancy Bell from the City of Coburg. Lucy Venice, Eugene. Megan Winter, LCOG, Pat Farr, Lane County. Rachel Dorfman, LCOG. Rob Innerfeld, City of Eugene. Sandy Belson, Springfield. Sasha Bertanian, Lane County. And then we have Tom Schwetz and Jameson Otten on one feed jointly for LTD. And just hope I didn't miss anybody. You can introduce yourself if I did.
It looks like we've got lots of people now. So I will call the meeting to order. And next item is approve the December 1st, 2022 MPC meeting minutes. Somebody wants to make a motion?
I so move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Pretty quiet out there.
I'll second.
Okay. I'll call for the vote for approval of the minutes.
Question before the vote.
Okay.
I was clearly not here. I'm back after a 4-year exile. I wasn't here for that meeting. What is your preference, Chair? Do you want people who weren't here to vote, or would you prefer that we abstain?
I'll defer to Paul on that. What should be done?
As voting members, it really is, I would say, up to the chair, Councilor Moe, as far as a preference, because certainly the new members, Commissioner Farr, Commissioner Lovell, are permitted to vote. So it's really the councilor or the chair's discretion.
If they've read the minutes, then they do know what happened that those minutes recorded. And if they're okay with that,
I am prepared to vote, Chair. Then I will go ahead and vote.
All right, thank you.
As am I.
Vote for approval of the minutes.
Aye.
Everybody? Anybody against them? Don't hear much of that. Okay. Next one is adjustments to the agenda, announcements from MPC meeting members. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none, Chair.
Okay, seeing none. Do MPC members have any announcements for the committee?
I do have a quick one.
Right.
Just wanted to highlight that the City of Eugene is hosting an open house on the improvements to Franklin Boulevard tonight 4:30 to 6:30 at the Ford Alumni Center at the U of O.
And I'm going to be there. Let me tell you something, some confusion on Franklin Boulevard. We have Franklin Boulevard in Glenwood. And I always think of Franklin Boulevard being that. So when you do the section in University, we don't realize there is another Franklin Boulevard. So
Right.
that's some confusion sometimes. It's caused me confusion. Okay. Having that. Comments from the audience.
Chair
Now-
Mo,
Yes, sir.
just two things very quickly. One is that I was in the Eugene City Council when we gave Springfield Franklin Boulevard in Glenwood. An interesting vote 20 some odd years ago.
And thank you for that.
And just to anybody, staff in particular, I was on the MPC for 6 years. Would like to have been on for the last 4 years, but was not able to be. And I enjoy this committee more than any other. So thank you.
Appreciate having you. You have very good input. I know that. Okay. Public comment. The meeting will be conducted via Zoom webinar, allowing public access to the Zoom meeting as an attendee. Anyone wishing to comment in general or during a public hearing will be asked to raise their Zoom virtual hand when prompted by the chair at the beginning of each public comment opportunity. Speakers will be moved to the panelist status and asked to speak on a first-come basis. A limit of 3 minutes per person is requested. Any questions there? Okay, any hands, Paul?
Chair, no, there's no hands, and furthermore, I see nobody attending other than members and staff, so I don't believe we have comments from the public today.
Okay, then we'll move on. Next one is elections of chair and vice chair for 2022, and then we'll be appointing an OMPOC member. Staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So a quick presentation with some background, in particular perhaps for our new members, although Commissioner Farr, the rules haven't changed since you were last on MPC. MPC annually elects a chair and vice chair. Because of the structure of MPC, the chair and vice chair must come from either the city of Eugene, the city of Springfield, or Lane County. And it has typically been that the three jurisdictions have rotated those responsibilities. If that tradition is followed, then our current vice chair, Councillor Moe, current chair Groves could not attend today, but our current vice chair, Councillor Moe, would presumably be nominated into rotation for the chair for 2023. And one of the Lane County members would occupy the vice chair seat for this calendar year. So I can talk about the OMPOC members in a few minutes, but if you'd like to proceed with the chair and vice chair election nominations and elections, please do.
Then I guess I'll ask for nominations for the 2023 MPC chair. Mr. Farr. Mr. Farr. Turn on your microphone.
I nominate Councillor Moe, President.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do we actually vote on that or? Okay.
Yes.
Then all who approve, say yes.
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 David, Lovell?
Yes.
Oh, that was just your hand. I thought you were wanting to say something. Okay, now we'll take nominations for vice chair. Mr. Farr.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Commissioner Lovell to be vice chair.
Do you accept Lovell, Mr. Lovell?
I would accept, yes.
All right. Any other nominations for vice chair? All approve of David Lovell as being vice chair?
Aye.
So you're vice chair. I'm chair and you're vice chair.
Happy to accept. Thank you, peeps.
Thank you. Okay, next item is Metropolitan Planning Organization issues.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, the OMPOC member appointments.
Oh, okay, hold on here. Yeah, OMPOC member, which is the Oregon part of, or state part of this. I'm presently on that now, and I really enjoy it. I will tell you, on that committee, you really see what's coming way out ahead, which is pretty interesting. And I wouldn't mind going on if the rest of the committee would allow me to do that.
Chair, if I may, oh, go ahead.
No,
Excuse me.
go ahead. No, speak. No, I'd like to hear what you have to say, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Oregon MPO Consortium, or OMPOC, is a consortium of all of Oregon's metropolitan planning organizations that LCOG formed about 18 years ago, I believe. And the consortium consists of 2 members from each of MPO policy board, typically appointed for the calendar year. The consortium generally meets quarterly. In the past, it used to be in person, rotating among the MPOs. So we would travel from one MPO to another every quarter. Over the past several years, the meetings have been virtual, although this year we're hoping to return to some in-person or hybrid meetings. The consortium, again, is looking for 2 members from this MPO policy board to serve this calendar year.
Okay.
One quick note, as far as availability, is that OMPOC actually meets tomorrow morning. So
yep.
The next meeting would be very quick if you are appointed to this position. And just to wrap up real quick, as Councilor Moe said, he has served and has indicated an interest in continuing to serve on OMPOC. Our other member from last year was LTD's board member who has left. So at this point, we have an open seat.
So who within this group would like to volunteer to be on that?
I would love to see someone from LTD serve on in this role again, if there's interest.
There's lots of transfer stuff going on there, that's for sure. But we don't have an LTD representative here yet, do we? Official one?
Actually, Council, we're without a board member today, but Jameson and I are serving in their stead. And we can speak to the issue of a LCOG board member being part of OMPOC. That's helpful.
LTD board member, Tom, you said LCOG. You
Oh, I did. Sorry, regression.
So is that okay to do it that way, Paul?
That again is up to the body. If LTD believes that one of their members that will be appointed later this month is willing to serve on OMPOC, I would have no problem with that appointment happening today. And I might ask Tom if either yourself or Jameson could attend OMPOC tomorrow, though.
Yeah, I'll be able to make that. And I'll say we have a board member who's interested in serving in that capacity and will be on the MPC, Susan Cox.
How does the other rest of the committee feel about that?
Sounds great. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Next one, Metropolitan Planning Organization issues, proposals for redistricting funding. The agenda item sort of just did, and asked for staff presentation. This will be an action item. We'll provide public hearing and just feedback to the staff.
That's right. My name is Daniel Collister, transportation planner at the Lane Council of Governments. This is presenting the proposals for the use of the MPO's redistribution funding and to conduct a public hearing. So in years where Oregon DOT obligates 100% of its federal funds, it receives redistribution funding, which is funding essentially that other states were not able to obligate. So ODOT traditionally is really good at obligating their funds, and they get this redistribution every year. Many of you may recall that in recent years, the 3 TMAs in Oregon, the large MPOs, Portland Metro, Salem Kaiser, and ourselves, have been working with ODOT to develop a framework to incentivize timely obligation of our MPO discretionary funds. Part of that was an agreement that the MPOs that met their obligation targets will receive a share of the redistribution funds. This has usually come to us in relatively small sums like 500,000 or maybe $1 million. But our share of the redistribution this year is 2.4 million. So these are funds for the Central Lane MPO to program for projects at MPC's discretion. When we first discussed this at Technical Advisory Subcommittee, we included the $900,000 or so that MPC agreed to retain as a buffer for contingencies back in October as part of our MTIP project selection. The cover memo mentions that. However, due to some late breaking news, that reserve has been eliminated. We were told to expect a low limitation on our 2023 funds. This is getting a little technical, but it is high level, I promise. And it ended up that final limitation rate that was reported to us from ODOT yesterday was really low. So what that means is that the $900,000 or so, that buffer is going to be needed to keep our existing projects whole. So I'm presenting today the 5 funding proposals for the use of only the $2.4 million and not the full 3.2 that is mentioned in the cover memo. Of these 5 applications that we received, 4 of them are for existing projects already supported by MPC that utilize MPO funds. I'll go through each of these one by one really briefly. The one-page summaries are included in the meeting packet. The first one is bike share operations and expansion. This is the City of Eugene proposal. This is the one of the 5 that's not currently in the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, not currently funded with MPO discretionary funds. So this is a project, excuse me, that will support bike share operations, also lay out a plan for expanding access to the bike share system by adding to the number of bikes in the network, expanding the network area, increasing access to low-income community members, improving outreach and marketing. What's being requested is $600,000 for that. The next proposal is also from City of Eugene. This is Hunsaker Lane, Daffodil Court to Tido Street. This is an existing project that is MPO funded already. This is to reconstruct Hunsaker Lane. It's going to include adding curb, gutter, sidewalk to both the north and south sides of the roadway. Roadway is going to be 34 feet wide to accommodate 2 travel lanes and buffered bike lanes. What's being requested with this proposal is an additional $500,000 for that project. The next 2 proposals are both from Lane County for existing projects that are MPO supported for Clear Lake Road pavement preservation and Coburg Road Game Farm Road pavement preservation. Both of these projects included significant local overmatch, which is local funding beyond what's required to match the federal funds. And Lane County recently agreed to help City of Coburg out of kind of a tight situation where there's a City of Coburg project that MPC supported and funded. The trick with federal aid projects is they have to be delivered by a certified agency. Mm-hmm. In this area, that means City of Eugene or Lane County or ODOT. So City of Coburg is dependent upon those agencies and their schedules and their availability to deliver their federal aid projects. And this particular project of theirs, they needed it delivered sooner than was going to be possible. So a creative solution that they negotiated with Lane County was, because there is so much overmatch on these Lane County projects, the county was willing to take the federal funds from the Coburg project, replace them with local funding. If the City of Coburg project is 100% locally funded, it's no longer beholden to the red tape of the federal aid projects, and Coburg can deliver that project themselves. The Lane County projects are already federalized, already going to be delivered by a certified agency. So that was a really great solution. But the result is there's still a balance of local overmatch on both of these Lane County projects, and the county is hoping that they can switch those balances out. 242,000 for Clear Lake Road and 198,000 for Coburg Road and Game Farm Road. Switch those out for federal funds that would free up those local funds for other Lane County priorities. The final application is for City of Springfield's Mill Street project. This is another existing project in the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, MPO funded already. This is a really expensive, big project. It's due to unforeseen circumstances. It's insufficiently funded. There's a significant gap in the funding for this project. This is reconstructing Mill Street from South 8th Street to Centennial Boulevard, and there's a lot that goes along with that. But the in the attachment, the summary, under federal funds requested, it shows that full amount, the full $3.2 million. The intention was there's more than that. The gap is larger than that to fill for this project. City of Springfield is hoping to fill that gap as much as they can to offset their other options for funding that, which may include canceling other priority projects to free up those funds. So with the understanding that they'll take whatever they can get, and may as well request all. And again, the full 3.2 million that's being requested is no longer available. We're talking about 2.4 million. Those are the 5 applications at a very high level. I'll just add that last May, MPC established the MPO's primary funding considerations. Those are the 8 different objectives taken from the 28 objectives of the Regional Transportation Plan that was adopted last year. Those considerations and other considerations like the federal performance targets, for example, those help to guide the project selection process more objectively. The full applications for each of these are available online, or you can click the hyperlinks in the cover memo. It will take you to those full applications. Those applications include a description of how the proposals satisfy the funding considerations. So these materials were published for public review. Public comment period is open until February 16th. There have been no comments received to date. TPC will make a funding recommendation for MPC to consider next month. What we're asking today is for a public hearing on these proposals. I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can about the process, or if there are questions about these specific proposals, I might defer those to the applicants themselves.
Okay. I guess it's time for me to open the public hearing for comments on this.
Chair, yes, and again, as earlier, I see no one raising their hand and no member or nobody attending other than members and staff. So I don't believe we have anybody wishing to testify today.
Any comments from the group here? Okay.
Yeah, I've got one, if you mind, Chair. Hey, Dan, on this, thanks for the presentation. Great stuff. So let me get this clear. You're saying that instead of the 3.2 that was available for the Mill Street project, now we're down to 2.4. Is that what I understood?
So the Mill Street project, the gap is more than 3.2. They just in their application requested all that was available, given the latest information they had at the time they were completing the application. What's available now is 2.4 million.
Gotcha. All right, that's what I thought I heard. So is there any, this is one of the main things I get calls on is this road. So as you might guess, someone's going to ask me, when's it going to be fixed? Do we have any timeline on this? Perspective, what would you punt? I don't know. What would you tell them?
I can tell you it's programmed now for completion in 2024, but I don't think that that's realistic anymore. And I will defer to City of Springfield staff for a better answer.
Yeah, that's a big project. There's a lot of infrastructure under that road.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandy Belson. I'm the Comprehensive Planning Manager for the City of Springfield. So we have been able to get this project to 30% design. And in doing so, that's when we determined that it was significantly underfunded. And so I think the timeline is going to depend on whether we are going to be able to fill that funding gap and how quickly we'll be able to do that. So we'll be having a work session with City Council in the coming month or two to talk about how to address that funding gap. And at that point, once we know that we have fully funding, we can go forward with obligation and have a more definitive timeline.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that.
Anybody else? No. Okay, Mayor.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the first request from the city of Eugene about the bike share program, and I can't remember, I don't know whether maybe Dan said this and I didn't hear it, which is this $600,000 request is for 3 years of operational support, so it'd be $200,000 a year, and that bike share program's never actually been completely fully funded, so this would help sort of fully fund it and also enable it to expand the network. So,
Anybody else? Okay, end level.
Oh, Commissioner Parr, you go ahead. You had your hand up first. I'll go next.
Sorry about that. Very quickly, I'll look at you, Councillor Moe. You and I have worked together a lot of years. You heard from Commissioner Lovell, who lives in Springfield. I think Springfield now has 3 representatives on MPC. Well done.
Good.
So very quickly, and this is probably for Sasha. I will have some questions on the projects, but I won't belabor the entire meeting with questions that I have on the Lane County specific projects. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Lovell.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair. The belaboring of questions. This is my last one. When Mayor Venice, you said that this was part of also the expansion. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with some folks that this bike program was expanded into Springfield. Is this part of that, or is that a totally separate issue?
I think Rob Interfeld is on this call, and maybe he could answer more specifically.
And go ahead, Rob.
Well, yeah, hi, Commissioner Lovell. I'm Rob Interfeld, Transportation Planning Manager for the City of Eugene. I mean, this question may be better answered by LCOG staff who are working with the City of Springfield on the potential to expand bike share there. But I would say that this is to help. I mean, the goal is like these funds are to just support the basic operations of the bike share. And if all of the funding is not needed to support the basic operations, then we can also use the money to expand the bike share system or to electrify the fleet, which are also goals of ours. I would say that there's a separate initiative underway to look at how to expand financially. What would it take to expand into Springfield? That's a separate discussion, but I think we need to have a robust program to expand. Like if the program in Eugene is not well funded enough to operate, then we won't have something to expand into Springfield. So it's part of this is making sure it's a viable funded program, just like, you know, LTD has sources of funding that it uses in addition to their rider revenue, their fares. And so this is sort of like that. We don't have like something like a payroll tax for bike share. And so this is, we do get funding from Peace Health, a sponsorship, but that in itself is not enough to keep the program running in addition to the revenue we get from the people who use it. So that's basically what this is about. Thanks for your question. And then if anyone from LCOG or the City of Springfield can answer that.
Let's see. Just my comment is Springfield's catching up on the bicycle issues because we have to. And so I know a lot of these bicycles in this program will filter over into Springfield for a while because it's Peace Health sponsored. So we're going to be there. I'm going to close the public hearing because we're still in that. Is that okay? Oh, wait, Paul and Sandy, sorry.
Chair, yes, that's fine to close the public hearing. I would actually maybe defer to Sandy to go first to weigh in on the current thread if she wants to.
Sure, just in response to the Commissioner Lovell's question about bike share in Springfield. So we did talk about trying to use any of these reallocation funds to support bike share, but decided to prioritize Mill Street. But council is discussing bike share at their meeting on February 6th next week. And staff is seeking direction from council to pursue other funding opportunities. If there's council support, then we would continue to pursue funding to be able to expand bike share into into Springfield beyond the Peace Health location.
Now,
And then,
Like that Mill Street
Hey,
project
Paul.
sucking a lot of resources.
Paul, your hand's still up?
yes, and then Chair, I can just sort of wrap that up by saying that, as I think everybody's indicated, the current funding request is really for the Eugene expansion and to solidify its full funding, but LCOG staff and the regional staff have been working with Springfield to hopefully pursue other funding for expansion into Springfield, and certainly would be bringing that back to you if it came around. The other thing I wanted to clarify, just to make sure that Commissioner Lovell was clear and the rest of you were clear, that the 2.4 million available in this round of funding is the total available for all of the project requests. As indicated, what the Mill Street request did was ask for all of the funding, but recognize that if the other 4 projects were funded, the regional staff have discussed that basically the Mill Street project would get whatever's left over at this point.
Okay, which we heard better news of that in Springfield. Any other discussion about this agenda item? It's no action on it, so we can move on to the next one. Annual list of obligated projects 2022. I'll introduce the agenda item and ask for staff presentation.
Yes, thank you. That's me again. So this is the annual listing of obligated projects. Attached is the 15-page 2022 annual listing report. Just briefly to summarize, so federal law requires MPOs to publish an annual listing of projects for which federal funds have been obligated in the previous fiscal year. Obligation is defined as the federal government's commitment to pay the federal share of a project's cost. For FHWA projects, obligation occurs when a project agreement is executed and ODOT requests that federal funds be obligated or made available for reimbursing project costs. For FTA projects, obligation is considered to occur when an FTA grant is awarded and available for execution following Department of Labor review. So the report is compiled from a number of sources. ODOT provides me with an exported spreadsheet of all of the transactions through the Federal Highway Administration's fiscal management system. I do QA, QC through that because some of those numbers can be a little iffy or inaccurate in some cases. I get information from the state financial plan, and I get information from Lane Transit District regarding FTA obligations. Again, I QA, QC this and consult local agency staff to make sure that the numbers are accurate. Once I have confidence that the numbers are accurate, I compile this report showing by project, by phase, by fund source, what are the federal funds that have obligated in the Central Lane MPO in the last year. At a very high level, in 2022, there were $64,551,487 of federal funds obligated to 42 different transportation improvement projects or programs in the Central Lane MPO. Of those, $17.1 million were of the MPO's discretionary funds, which is a large amount for that funding program when you consider we receive about 7 million a year of those. So that was really great, and that helps to explain in the previous agenda item how we receive those redistribution funds. It's because we're meeting our obligation targets for those MPO discretionary funds. So it's really great to see. It's a snapshot of what's happening in the MPO, how our federal transportation dollars are being spent nearly real time. So the full report is there. I think on page 4 is the actual listing of those obligations by project. It does include some negative dollar amounts. Don't let those throw you. Those are technically obligations, which is why they're included on the report, but those are considered de-obligations when a project closes out or if it needs to be canceled and funds had been obligated, there needs to be a de-obligation. Those funds aren't lost necessarily. They're reprogrammed to other projects. So some of those negative dollar amounts may be accounted for in some of the positive dollar amounts on this same sheet. But that's the report. I'm happy to answer any questions. It is a bit technical, but it's also kind of a high-level summary of what's happening in the MPO.
Anybody? Let's see, it's just a,
I'll just chime in that this is such good news that we have actually, done what we said we would do and spent the money successfully and completed those projects. I mean, that is very good news. So I thank you for sharing that.
that doesn't happen often. Yeah, this was an informational item. I believe, yeah. And any other questions? Then we will move on to Safe Lane Coalition update. And I'll ask for staff presentation.
Oh, great, thank you. Can everyone see the slide? All right. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Drew Pefferly, and I am the Safe Lane Transportation Coalition Coordinator. As some of you may recall, before the COVID-19 pandemic, I would give annual Safe Lane Transportation Coalition updates to the MPC to highlight some of the work that we've been doing over the year. Since this is the MPC's first meeting in 2023, we figure now is a great opportunity to resume those annual updates. Today, I'll give a brief background behind the formation of the Safe Lane Transportation Coalition, but I'll mainly be focusing on some of the great projects that we did in 2022 and highlight some of the projects we're excited to work on in 2023. The Safe Lane Coalition, it's formed out of a statewide and regional safety planning effort in 2017. ODOT funded the creation of the coalition and has continued to provide funding to support staffing each year. The Safe Lane's work is informed by our members' safety plans and projects. The coalition uses these plans to help focus programming and education and outreach efforts to address the biggest safety issues in our region. The Safe Lane Coalition is a collaborative group of individuals, organizations, and government agencies working to reduce fatal and severe injuries, crash-related injuries in Lane County. The coalition uses the strengths and resources of its partners to influence and establish transportation safety programs and practices to decrease the number of preventable deaths each year caused by motor vehicle collisions. The coalition focuses on 3 specific transportation safety areas: speed reduction, DUI prevention, and safety education and outreach. The coalition meets once a month, the 4th Thursday. The monthly meetings give partners an opportunity to provide updates on safety projects, an occasion to collaborate and share ideas or resources. And occasionally, I try to bring in guest speakers to present on a specific safety transportation topic. For example, last year we had a staff member from the Oregon Operation Lifesaver to come to speak to us on rail crossing safety and rail trespass prevention. The image you see is a snapshot of coalition members. Coalition involvement depends on the level of engagement. Some members have the bandwidth to participate in multiple projects, while other members might not be able to commit to working on a project, but they still want to be informed, and they will attend our monthly meetings. In 2020, the coalition applied for $450,000 in federal funding to support specific projects identified through a strategic planning effort. The projects include funding to continue the work of the coalition, safety analysis and planning in Springfield and the MPO, marketing support for regional DUI and speed reduction safety campaigns, and to provide funding for quick build projects in Eugene. For those of you that are unfamiliar with quick build projects are temporary, low-cost safety projects that can be constructed quickly. I want to briefly highlight the Quick Build pilot project that was the catalyst for this safety funding. In the fall of 2019, the Safe Lane Coalition worked with a group of University of Oregon real-world Eugene students and the city of Eugene to construct a temporary traffic circle at the intersection of Adams and Clark Street in Eugene. The intersection was selected due to its wide pedestrian crossing area, poor visibility, and fast vehicle traffic. The image on the left is what the intersection originally looked like, and the image on the right is what the intersection looked like for 4 hours early one Saturday morning in November of 2019. The group used a combination of traffic cones, sidewalk chalk, and City of Eugene traffic engineers to direct vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic around the roundabout or the traffic circle. Traffic cameras were used to collect data surrounding the use of the intersection. Feedback from the event was largely centered around safety improvements. And based on the community feedback and the traffic flow data, the installation was shown to have a positive safety effect at the intersection. So shortly after the conclusion of the Real World Eugene project, the city of Eugene installed a quick build traffic circle that is in use today. So based on the success of that pilot program, we applied and received funding for the city of Eugene to continue and build more quick build projects throughout Eugene. Now I would like to share with you some of the projects that we worked on last year and the partnerships that made them possible. As I mentioned in the last slide, we received grant funding to create and implement 2 distinct education campaigns, one focusing on DUI prevention and one focusing on speed reduction. In preparation of the grant money coming through, a handful of Safe Lane members met over 8 months to strategically plan out each campaign. Our partners brought their unique knowledge and background to the planning process, and we feel like we've really created the blueprint for 2 safety campaigns that can speak to all parts of Lane County. As of December, we officially received our notice to proceed with the grant funding, and we are currently drafting up a request for proposal for a marketing advertising agency to assist us in developing and distributing our safety campaign over the next few years. We're hoping to get that RFP out quickly so we can start working with the agency and get our campaigns out for all the holidays coming up in 2023. The project last year that had the most community involvement was our Slow Down Neighbors Ahead signs. We've been just offering these signs to the community since 2019. And when the program initially launched, we put out a press release and it never really got that much traction. But for some reason in 2022, KEZI heard about it and did a story. And within 24 hours, we had 400 requests for yard signs all across Lane County. So to fulfill that need, we worked with the LCOG senior and disability staff to give residents outside of the metro area easy access to the yard signs. So community members in Florence, Oak Ridge, Junction City, Cottage Grove could go to their respective senior and disability services and to get the signs. We heard from community members that they felt that the signs helped in 2 ways. The signs helped change the specific neighbors' attitudes, people that lived in the community. It changed their attitudes about driving quickly. And it also was a catalyst to bring neighbors together to talk about traffic safety in their community. We are currently awaiting our next shipment of signs. We have updated the signs to be more inclusive for people that use mobility devices. We are excited to get the signs and hopefully we can continue to provide them to the community for the next few years. The annual Be Safe, Be Seen campaign focuses on collaborating with local service agencies and providing lights and reflective gear, whether that be vests, beanies, or bands, and education materials to ensure safe night travels. Visibility while on the road is important, and it's especially important in the late fall as it becomes darker earlier in the evenings. Studies have shown that wearing reflective gear or a light can increase visibility from 500 feet at night compared to just 55 feet to an individual wearing dark clothes with no light or reflective gear. So we felt that it was really important for everyone that on the roadway to be seen, whether they have the means. So in 2022, the Be Safe, Be Seen campaign primarily focused on providing lights and reflective material to organizations that help people in need and people that are unhoused. Some of the agencies that distributed the lights and reflective materials include Homes for Good, The Mission, St. Vincent de Paul's, Sponsors, Ophelia Place, Community Supported Shelters, Connected Lane County, and many more. Overall, we had 36 partner organizations, 13 in Eugene, 9 Springfield, also 9 in the Eugene, Springfield greater area, and then 5 that service Lane County as a whole. And we were also able to put on with 5 in-person events. So it was a collaborative effort with all of our partners. And we look forward to seeing this campaign grow in 2023. And after a 2.5-year hiatus, we were very excited to partner with Lane County Public Health and Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission to provide responsible alcohol sales training to the community. We used to do this quite a few times before the pandemic, and this is the first time we were able to get out and do it somewhat post. Responsible alcohol sales training. It's a 2-hour class that aimed at people in the restaurant industry that serve alcohol. The training involved OLCC inspector educating on how to sell alcohol and how not to sell alcohol responsibly, and how to spot a fake ID. They bring in about 100 fake IDs and binders and kind of show you all the different signs of what to look for. It's very interesting. The training also includes a presentation from a law enforcement officer who is a certified drug recognition expert. They come in and talk about the different signs of impairment, whether that is drugs or alcohol related, and the signs that servers should look for to prevent overserving. But what we constantly hear is the best part of the training is the question and answer section, where staff and managers can ask questions and have a conversation with OLCC and the law enforcement officers. It's a great opportunity for servers and managers to get their questions answered, whether it's related to their alcohol license or whether it's about their employee safety. Our next responsible alcohol sales training is tentatively scheduled for this spring, and we're going to change up how we target the classes and that we're going. And so we're very excited. OLCC is very keen on keeping this project going, and we can do it without their support. The last major project I wanted to talk to you about is the Oregon Friendly Driver Course. The Oregon Friendly Driver Course is funded by ODOT and is offered in 3 regions throughout the state. It is a free course for anyone that uses the road, whether they walk, drive, or bike, and it aims to create safer streets for everyone. The class is offered in person, or it is pre-recorded online, or we offer a hybrid version where the instructor will conduct the class via Zoom. It takes 60 to 90 minutes to complete, and it educates all road users to how to better understand the rights and responsibilities of people using the roads. Last fall, we also started doing in-person classes again. We did one community class at Eugene Library downtown and one in the Springfield Library downtown. It was great to get out to the community and provide this class to the people that are interested. In December, the program manager at the University of Oregon's Duck Ride program, the university's student-led shuttle service, reached out and they wanted to incorporate the Oregon Friendly Driver course into their current driver training. So as of 2 weeks ago, we made that happen and provide training for the 40+ student drivers in the program. And we're currently in talks on how to build upon that partnership and expand on it through other programs. And that kind of leads me to what we're excited about working on this year. We have, like I said, with the Oregon Friendly Driver class, one thing that is kind of missing is we don't really have a lot of incentives for people to take it. We've been trying to work with insurance companies, but that's to get insurance rate discounts. That's going to be happening at the state level. So while that happens locally, we want to try to find what we can do, and we're looking for sponsorship opportunities, or that they could provide us, whether it's discounts on car-related maintenance or coffee that we could give out to the class, because we do have a lot of opportunities in the class for engagement and giving away. Right now, we give away candy, but if we could give away coffee, I think that would kind of help improve some of the engagement. A few of the. Oh, sorry, I don't know. My power just went out. So where was I? We are working with the Rural Transportation Collaborative. It's a program by Lane County that we're excited to work with. But the one thing that I highlighted here is we have a electrical mobility device outreach. We've heard from people that use mobility devices that they unfortunately get a lot of feedback where they're not supposed to be. They get harassed and people perceive that they're not supposed to be on the sidewalk or they're not supposed to be on the road. So we're starting to do an education campaign to provide clarity on where people with mobility devices can be legally. And we're going to be reaching out to senior living centers and some other places along those lines to provide this outreach. So that is all I really wanted to highlight today. I'm kind of running out of time, so please let me know if there's any other questions anyone has. So thank you.
I just wanted to say assistive mobility devices. That's a whole new term. Here we go. That's electric.
Yeah, that's usually related to people using scooters. It's the more professional way of saying a scooter.
Yeah, anybody have any questions? Here, we'll move on to the legislative preview. Thank you for that, by the way. That was very informative.
Thank you.
If there's no questions, Drew, and if you could stop sharing your screen. Perfect, thank you. Mainly because I would like to share my screen too. So this is just a real quick update that I'm going to give you on the beginning of the Oregon 2023 legislative session and transportation related legislation that has been introduced so far. The legislature started a week ago Tuesday. I have been trying to follow bills introduced related to transportation in one way or another. As soon as this meeting's done, I'm going to send you all a PDF that lists about 70 bills that I have, just a quick summary of them, so you can look through them. But I'll share my screen now very quickly, and there are 10 bills out of the 70 that I just thought I would go over and let you see today. So are you able to see that now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So these 10 bills are the ones that I thought would be of the most interest to the MPO, to the Lane Area Commission on Transportation, and again to this geography. Just really quickly, let me summarize. The first one is House Bill 2101. As it says, it would direct ODOT to establish the local transportation program to provide state funding in exchange for federal funds. This is really a bill that would accomplish something that we have talked about, which is continuing to support ODOT's fund exchange program, where they help jurisdictions by providing state funding in exchange for local jurisdictions' federal funding, and make it easier for local jurisdictions to spend that money. HB 2101 had its first public hearing 2 days ago, so that's a good indication that it may be a bill that actually moves forward, because certainly not all 70 of these will. House Bill 2619 is significant in that it proposes modifying the membership of the Oregon Transportation Commission. Currently, the OTC has 5 members, and those 5 members are appointed by the governor. And really the only conditions on their appointment is that they have to, no more than 3 of them can come from one political party. So there has to be political balance among those 5. This bill would expand the membership to 9 members and would add several conditions for membership. For instance, it would require that 1 member represent tribal interests. It would require that 1 member be, I believe, under 25 years old. And there's several other conditions in the bill. Again, you'll be able to read that if you want by clicking on the link in the PDF I will send you. Third one, House Bill 2658, is basically looking at a possible way of varying vehicle registration fees based on their relative carbon emissions. This is an attempt to both address to some extent climate change and also to address some extent incentivize, if you will, getting people to buy cleaner vehicles and therefore presumably have lower registration fees. House Bill 2677 is interesting in that it would require ODOT to provide a funding plan for highway maintenance when its projects add lane miles. So in other words, what this is doing is saying if ODOT is going to build additional capacity, they have to have a plan for maintaining that. It also says that they have to demonstrate in that plan that they will continue to maintain their existing system without a detriment. So this is basically trying to link maintenance must be addressed if you're going to add new capacity. House Bill 2691, co-sponsored by Representative Nathanson, just pretty quickly states that if there's agreements around high-speed ground transportation, in other words, high-speed rail, it needs to include service to Eugene. House Bill 2777, maybe a small bill in some respects, but it's interesting in that what it would do would allow cities or counties to impose a public transit incentive surcharge on any parking fine. In other words, basically, if you're paying a fine because your meter violated or you have other reasons for a parking fine, this is a way to perhaps collect some local public transit funding. The two SJRs, which were Senate Joint Resolutions, Senate Joint Resolution 2 and 19, are interesting because they are both proposed amendments to the Oregon Constitution. And let me be clear that if the legislature passed these resolutions, they are only proposed amendments to the Constitution at that point. They would have to be voted on statewide and to become actual amendments to the Constitution. The first one would expand the current restriction on the use of the state gas tax revenue. Again, I think most of you know that currently Oregon's highway revenues, mainly the gas tax, can only be used within the road right-of-way. This would expand that, and it would allow the use of those revenues on infrastructure that reduces the traffic burden of or pollution from motor vehicles on public roads. So in other words, you could spend that gas tax and other highway revenue on projects that would reduce the traffic burden on those roads. That could potentially include such things as off-road bike lanes, for instance, or off-road alternatives of other means. Second joint resolution constitutional amendment proposed here is interesting. I think everybody is quite aware that there's quite a bit of tolling being proposed for three major Portland metropolitan area projects, I-205, Rose Quarter, and the interstate bridge between Oregon and Washington. This proposed constitutional amendment would prohibit, well, let me back up. Currently, the Oregon Transportation Commission, once Oregon receives federal approval for tolling, which is basically in progress and a given, the Oregon Transportation Commission currently has complete authority to impose tolls and set the toll rate. This proposed amendment would say that any proposed toll has to go to a vote of the electors in the counties that are within 15 miles of any proposed section of highway to be tolled. So it basically removes the final authority for tolling from the OTC and places it up for a public vote. Three more on here at the bottom of the screen. HB 2301 impose a tax on the use of electricity to charge the battery of electric vehicles at the rate of the license tax imposed on motor vehicle fuel. This is a way to get at generating revenue from electric vehicles that don't pay the gas tax. HB 3113 takes general fund money and appropriates it to ODOT for improving safety and increasing access to walking, biking, and transit on state highways that serve as community main streets. So in other words, this is a way of saying or providing funding, if you will, specifically, or to ODOT specifically for improving their walking, biking, and transit conditions on ODOT state highways that are, again, main streets and communities such as Highway 58 through Oak Ridge. HB 3131, last one I'll mention today, is another one that basically looks at how they might get a tax on electricity for charging electric vehicles that would be equivalent to what those vehicles would pay if they were using fuel in the form of gasoline or diesel. So again, a couple of those bills, including that last one, are ways at trying to, as Oregon has talked about for many, many years, make sure that electric vehicles are paying their fair share when they're not paying a gasoline tax. So again, I just want to highlight those 10. I'll send out the full list that I have at this time after this meeting. This is very much in flux. It's very early in the session. Certainly not all 70 of the bills are going to move forward. I will try and update this list, give you updates perhaps monthly. Tomorrow's OMPOC meeting, I managed to ask and find availability, and Jim McCauley, who is the League of Oregon Cities Legislative Director and Transportation Lobbyist, will be speaking to OMPOC tomorrow morning on this topic. So we may learn some more about what he thinks is going to happen with some of these bills. Are there any questions?
Okay. Any questions? Okay, Sean, Gordon, Mayor.
Hey, Paul, I've got I guess a quick question or maybe a comment. A lot of these deal with the same issue, and I know it's really early on into the legislative session. How are we kind of tracking or sort of addressing feedback that says, hey, look, if you're going to, go after this set of mileage to, to get revenue from electrical vehicles, right? Like we can't hit, you can't do that 3 times, right? And when I read these, and again, they're just summaries, right? The thing I keep thinking is people are getting at the same conversation and maybe not talking to each other.
Mayor, that does happen early in the session. You'll often find, as you'll see perhaps in some other instances, not just electric vehicle taxation, that there may be a Senate bill introduced that is exactly aimed at the same thing as a House bill, and that simply can be a case of the different senators and representatives not talking to each other ahead of the session. These bills are generally drafted well ahead of the session, and that's something that generally happens and is worked out in committee. Most of these bills on the list of 70 I'm sending you are assigned to the Joint Committee on Transportation. That Joint Committee is going to work out, okay, this bill accomplishes the same thing as this other bill. Let's move Bill A forward instead of Bill B, or let's compromise and incorporate the best aspects of both of them into one bill to forward. Again, it's just too early, Mayor Van Gordon. I don't think that they're going to pass competing bills, but you are correct in what you've observed.
So right now, your advice is for us to be just a little bit patient, let this thing develop a little bit more as we learn more, and then we can kind of get involved.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's interesting that 2 nights ago, at Tuesday's meeting of the Joint Transportation Committee, they held the first hearing on the fund exchange program. And they also held the first hearing on another bill that I didn't highlight, which is the bill to allow all cities in Oregon to operate photo radar. So those 2 bills are ones that are likely to move forward because they got initial hearings pretty quick. Mayor Dennis?
Just, this is just sort of following up on those final 3 bills that were the cluster of bills that are all looking at a way to replenish gas tax funds by by creating a tax for electric vehicles. And it feels to me a little bit like the right hand not agreeing with what the left hand is doing in this way. If we're on the one hand, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint and encourage the development of EV infrastructure. And on the other hand, we're, you know, it feels like a disincentive a little bit. So I'm just wondering if the conversation is that charge for EV vehicle, that tax, if that would be applied towards EV infrastructure, then it would feel like it makes sense to me. Doesn't feel like it makes sense to me to charge a, you know, just, I'm just sort of, we're trying to move in this direction of electrifying, and we're trying to pay for it, and we're also trying to make sure it's attractive to people. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out where that conversation is at the legislature.
Mayor, you raise a very good point. At this point, I think that's something that again could come during the committees and eventually the full Senate and House discussions on potential bills about what the revenue might have to be dedicated to. On the other hand, I know that although it could be a disincentive, ODOT views the need to generate revenue from electric vehicles just to maintain the roadway, because electric vehicles generally wear down the pavement just the same as gasoline powered vehicles. And there's a need there to have some revenue stream to pay for their share of that maintenance cost and preservation of the system. You know, I think that Oregon also has incentives for purchases of certain types of electric vehicles. And there's even talk about Oregon having an incentive for the purchase of electric bicycles. So there are very definitely competing things going on here.
Thank you. Thank you. That makes sense to me.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair Mo, and thank you, Paul Thompson, for your response on that. That's kind of what I was going to cover. And Mayor Venice, I know you're interested in a fair balance of who pays for what and why they're paying for it. And you know, the deterioration of the roadway is something that Paul discovered. I won't go into any more depth on that. But it's a discussion that's going to be, we need to have with the legislature, and the more we can get to a balanced legislature on discussion, the better off everybody's going to be. And I think this is an area that it can be, it can bring people closer to balance. We have a dreadfully imbalanced legislature right now.
Anybody else about the subject? Legislation. Oh, you guys still have your hand up, Commissioner Farr. I guess not. Okay, then we'll move on to the ODOT update. I'll ask for the ODOT report. Must be there someplace.
Bill, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are. Thank you.
My apologies. Bill Johnston, ODOT Transportation Planner from the Springfield office. I'm filling in for Vidal Francis, the ODOT Area 5 Manager. He usually represents ODOT on the MPC. He couldn't be here today. I did talk with him earlier this morning. He indicated that he doesn't have any announcements or project updates to share with the MPC today. That's all I have.
That was a quick report. Thank you. Okay, now, members of the committee, are there any basic questions that need to be answered as we get close to adjournment? Any agenda items that you might want to think about we need to come up with? Oh, Commissioner Farr.
And thank you, Chair. It is just a basic question, and there may not be a response to this. Has any discussion been had at this committee level when we may return to in-person meetings? Far more productive in person.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Chair. I'm sorry. Chair, would you like me to respond on that?
Well, and not necessarily. It's probably more of a rhetorical question, because you've been here with the committee, and if no discussions actually occurred up to this point, there's nothing to report on. But many of my other committees are beginning to meet in person again, including MWMC and some of the intergovernmental committees. Mm-hmm. I think, once again, few people will disagree that when you're in a room talking to people, it's a lot easier than trying to make eye contact on this screen of 16 people I'm looking at.
Much more so.
Commissioner, what I can say is that we have been talking about it as staff. We felt that talking about it and perhaps we can put it formally on the agenda next month to see if everybody would like to return to what I think would be a hybrid meeting situation, both in person with virtual access. We thought that this was the appropriate time, given that starting this calendar year, we have 5 brand new members on MPC.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to wait with that transition and have the discussion now.
And thanks. That's all I needed to hear on that, Paul. It'll happen when we're able to make it happen. Poverty and Homelessness Board went back to meeting in person this last month, but staff forgot that lunch is typically provided when you have a lunch meeting. So we all went pretty hungry throughout the lunch break that day. There's a lot to coordinate when you go back to in-person meetings after you've not been doing it for 2.5 years.
I support going back to in-person meetings, but I do want to remind everybody, COVID is now the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. We've gotten so used to it that we're becoming careless and reckless. So we need to be aware of that. Okay, anybody else? I guess a good time to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
do.